One of the final steps in completing the setup of your CenterPoint payroll is to set up your employees. We will cover the setup of employees in several videos. This video will cover the general, addresses, and custom fields tab of the employee setup screen. You can get to the employee setup screen by going to either Setup, Employees, or Setup, Payroll Details, Employees. You'll notice that I do have one employee on my screen already. I'm going to talk about this employee setup before I go in to create a new setup. I'm going to double click on it to edit it. You notice that this employee has a checkbox in the little checkbox labeled template. So I have created this as a template employee. And in fact, it's not really an employee at all. I have a fake abbreviation in there, a fake name, and a fake social security number. But what I've done is I've pre-set up some of the selections that I need for creating other employees to expedite the setup of those other employees. As an example, I have several Minnesota hourly employees that have all the same taxes taken out, they have all the same earnings, and they have the same leave items. So I've pre-selected those items on this record. I can go to the Taxes tab. You can see that I have all the taxes selected, including their workers' compensation class. I have all of the earnings selected, and for those earnings, I have allocated those to the profit center of stores and the location of the Minnesota store. And I've pre-selected the leave item called PTO for those employees. So all of those items are pre-selected, and I don't have to select those when creating a new employee. What I do need to do when I'm creating a new employee is I would highlight the template employee, click copy, and it'll copy all of the information from that template employee to a new record, except for the abbreviation, the social security, and the name, because those definitely have to be unique for this new employee. So it's copied though over all the taxes, the earnings, and the leave items. Now I can go through the rest of the tabs, making sure that I fill in the information and make it be specific to this employee, but it's a lot less steps. I will not mark this new employee as a template. Template employees don't show up when you're entering in timesheets, and they don't show up when you are doing a pay run. So they're only here for expediting the setup of new employees. You can have as many template employees as you need to. To create a new employee, I can click New, and that's going to take me into the employee setup, into the General tab. As discussed before, we're going to be talking about the general, addresses, and custom fields tabs of the employee setup. We do need to put in a unique abbreviation for each employee. If you're integrating CenterPoint with a time clock or some sort of time record keeping device, you might want to match this abbreviation to whatever code you use for the employee in that device. It will make that integration a little bit easier. You do need to have a social security number for your employee, and it does need to be unique among all employees. Okay, so you can't have two employees with the same social security number. You do have a place to put in their last name. There's a suffix, a first name, and a middle initial. You have two address lines plus the city, state, and zip to enter in the address. So you only need to, use as much of it as you need. On that last address line, the city, state, and zip, if you do need another format as opposed to city, state, and zip, there are other formats that you can choose from. Otherwise, it's going to go right to the zip code field and ask you to put in the zip code. It'll fill in the city and state. For each employee, you have multiple communication methods. Off to the right here, I have the phone, cell phone, and email, and I could put those in for this employee. And any email address. I will not mark this employee as a template employee because this one is an employee that I want to come up when I'm entering in timesheet information or entering in a pay run. Under the Active Status button is one of a couple different ways to make an employee active or inactive. If it has check marks in the box next to either the employer, which is this top level, or the company, which is this bottom level, if I want to make it inactive, if it has check marks in it, it means it's active. If I want to make it inactive, I just take the check mark out. For those of you using fund accounting, the companies are equal to the funds in your database. Next to the cancel button is a sequence of 3 buttons. The first button allows you to scan documents directly from your scanner into this employee record and attach it to this employee record. There is a separate video on file attachments, which talks about the setup of your scanner and going through that process of scanning documents in from your scanner directly. The second button is related to the first button. It is for file attachments, but this one would allow you to attach documents that are already on your computer. You can click on that paperclip icon, and if you want to attach a document already on your computer, you could click the attach button and browse for it. Or if you have the ability to drag and drop it into this record, you can drag and drop it into this record. Mine is asking me, and this is because I haven't got my preferences preset, mine is asking me whether I want to store it in a file repository or in the database. And the file attachments video will go through those 2 options and explain the difference between those. I'm going to choose repository, and now you see that I have a document attached to this employee. And I'm going to click OK. Now that is going to show up as a yellow button now that the attachments are out there. If I want to view the attachment at any time, I could click on that button on the employee's record and either highlight this and click the view button or double click on it to view it. The third button in the sequence of buttons is an additional notes button. This button allows you to add additional notes to an employee, just information you want to track about the employee that we don't have somewhere else in the system. You can add a timestamp to the note, and then you can type in your note. As you can see here, I put in a note that this employee's been granted paid vacation from July 1 to July 7, and that's all I wanted to put in there. I could click OK. Now I can come back to that button at any time and add additional notes or take away the notes that are in there by deleting them. Once there are notes attached or entered in on an employee, that button too will be highlighted in yellow. Now I'm going to move to the Addresses tab. You'll notice when I go to the Addresses tab that there's already an address there. That's the address that came from the General tab. That address is marked as both the default business address and the default home address. The default business address is the address that any pay advices or paychecks would be addressed to. The home address is the address that any W-2s would be sent to. I can add additional addresses. This particular employee is a remote employee and they have 2 locations that they work from. So sometimes they're in their Florida location. So I'm going to click New to add that new address. When you're adding a new address, you can choose what type of location type for it. If you need to add an additional location type, you could click New to add an additional location type. This one, though, is a home address for the employee. It's their Naples address. And then I'm going to type in their address in Naples, Florida. Now, if I mark this one as the default business or home address, it will uncheck the one that was previously marked as the default home or business address. I don't want this one to be the default of either, so I'm not going to mark it. For each address, if I highlight my original address, for each address you have some communication methods. Notice this communication method came from the General tab on this particular address. But you have other communication methods that you can add in here for this address. The other address can have its own set. If you want them to be the same, then you do need to copy them over there. And you could do that by just selecting the data that's in one of the fields, hitting Control-C on your keyboard, moving to the other address, clicking in the field you want to copy it to, and selecting Control V as in Victor on your keyboard, and that'll copy it there. Otherwise, they could have different information for those different addresses. Now we're going to move on to the Custom Fields tab. The Custom Fields tab allows you to create pieces of information that you want to track about your employees that we don't have a field for already. So one of the things that I need to track is their driver's license state and the driver's license number, because our employees do drive our vehicles and we need that for insurance purposes. So I'm going to click on the Custom Fields screen, click New. I'm going to create a new field called driver's license state. Oops. Each field can either be a date, numeric, percentage, or a text field. This is going to be a text field. So I'm going to save that one, and then I'm going to create another one and call this the driver's license number. And that is also going to be a text field. And when I close that screen, then you'll see that those become fields on this custom field screen, and I have a place where I can enter in that information for each employee. And it becomes an optional field. If I don't need it for an employee, I don't need to enter it in. Now I'm ready to save this record. A few things about this list tab on the employee setup. There's some buttons at the bottom. We already saw what the new button did. If I want to edit an employee on the list, all I have to do is highlight the employee and click the edit button at the bottom, or I can double click on the employee, and that would also allow me to get into edit, and any information that I want to edit on the employee, I can edit. There are a few pieces that you might not be able to change, but the system will indicate that when that is the case. I can delete an employee on the list, but only if they haven't been used in some sort of a payroll. I could delete this employee because they haven't been used in a payroll, but I don't want to delete this employee at this time. I could delete this template employee if I needed, just by highlighting it and clicking delete. We already saw what copying does. I did that with the template employee. I highlighted the template employee and clicked copy to create a new employee. If you have two employee records that you want to combine, you can do it. I'm sorry, I don't know why that screen came up. I do have the ability to combine them, but we don't recommend combining employees because you do need to have a unique employee each time. The Social Security needs to be unique to only one record, so there really shouldn't be any situations where you need to combine employees. If you do, just make sure that you do a backup before you do any combining. The last button, the Mass Update button, there is a separate video on. The Mass Update allows you to change pieces of information for multiple employees at a time. For example, if an insurance rate changed and it affected multiple employees, you could use Mass Update to update that field of information on all of those employees at one time. Finally, a second way to make an employee active or inactive is to right-click on the employee and choose the Activate, Deactivate option. This would allow you to mark the ones you want to activate it for, or mark the ones you want to deactivate it for. I'm just going to leave them active. You'll want to view the remaining videos to complete the employee setup.